it's almost impossible to see us coming back from this. I suspect we will lose the next general election. Now, I hope what Rishi Sunak does is make sure Labour doesn't wipe the floor with us, that we perhaps win 220 seats and we form a viable opposition, which was not the case in 1997 when we went down to having 165 members of Parliament.
Charles Walker, the Member of Parliament for Broxbourne, who will not be standing in the next general election. Charles, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for joining us, Charles. Good to speak to you. How do you reflect on this by-election defeat? We are familiar, I suppose, with the lines that tend to be used by the party of government and the opposition at a moment like this. So what's your own personal take?
Well, it was a Labour seat going into the by-election, and we certainly weren't going to win it. And I think the scale of the loss reflects where we stand in the opinion polls at the moment. So in a sense, this by-election was a sort of live fire exercise for where the opinion polls currently have us.
Yeah, and that's what Sir John Curtis was kind of emphasising on our programme a little while ago. How does that make you feel then about the state of the Conservative Party?
Well, I mean, the Conservative Party clearly, it's in a better place than it was 6 weeks ago when Liz Truss was Prime Minister. At least we have someone competent in charge. But I think, look, it's almost, as I said on this show before, it's almost impossible to see us coming back from this. I suspect we will lose the next general election. Now, I hope what Rishi Sunak does is make sure Labour doesn't wipe the floor with us, that we perhaps win 220 seats and we form a viable opposition, which was not the case in 1997 when we went down to having 165 members of Parliament.
Do you think that a by-election like this, the national polls as they are, do you get the sense that more current Conservative MPs are going to head for the exit door alongside you?
Oh, I suspect you'll see quite a lot of people standing down as we get nearer the general election. I think many of my colleagues won't have made their minds up yet, but I think it's inevitable. I think politics is quite a grueling vocation to be in. Many of my colleagues will be thinking, look, do I want to do much more of this? Do I want to go down to electoral defeat and have a sort of grueling 6-week campaign? Or if they're in really safe seats, do I want to be in opposition for 10 years?
What does it feel like in the Conservative Party right now, where, as you say, the national polls are really suggesting a 25-point lead for Labour over the Conservatives? That is being worked out, as you describe it, a live fire exercise in this by-election victory for Labour. In 2015, by the way, Chester was the most marginal constituency in the country. Labour won it by 93 votes. How does it feel in the Conservative Party just now? Because what I think of is perhaps an element of complacency might creep into the Labour Party. Is there an element of, I suppose, just reluctant defeat in the Conservative Party right now?
Look, most of my colleagues are realists. They know it's going to be an incredibly difficult 2 years. I do think the opinion polls will narrow. I don't think Labour going into a general election in 2 years' time will sustain a lead of 20-25%, but it doesn't need to win well. If it sustains a lead of, say, 12 to 15%, it will still poll extremely well whenever the general election comes, which I suspect is in 2 years' time. Look, the democratic wheel turns. The Conservative Party doesn't have a freehold on power. It is simply a leasehold, and we will have been in power for 14 years. We've had 4 very difficult issues to contend with: Brexit, COVID, events in Ukraine, China with its zero COVID policy not helping the global economy. And then on top of that, we scored an own goal with the 50-day premiership of Liz Truss. And I think that's ultimately what we'll pay the price for. Playing fast and loose with people's finances at a very serious time in their lives.
Will you vote Labour at the next general election?
Of course I won't vote Labour at the next general election. I'm a Conservative Member of Parliament, and the Conservative Party has given me a huge amount. I love the Conservative Party, but that doesn't mean it can't disappoint at times.
Do you still love it today, in its current condition, I mean?
Absolutely. The Conservative Party is bigger than any individual. It's been around for hundreds of years. It's the most successful political party Western Europe, and it will rise again. I mean, but I love living in a democracy as well. The Labour Party is one of the great successes of the 20th century. It too is a great political party. We are very lucky as a country to have two really fantastic political parties, both the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, and we should remember that. Most members of Parliament, almost all, are in Parliament because they love their country. Politics comes second. We absolutely love our country and put its interests first. Now, we may disagree how we do that. We may have different orders of priority, but in the main, our instincts are the right instincts.
Just in terms, Charles, it's so good to speak to you, so interesting to speak to you this morning. In terms of what Rishi Sunak needs to do, by way of strategy, I suppose, if this by-election is a bit of a kick for the Conservative Party, you know, a real-life example of what the polls have been suggesting, what should the strategy be from here on out?
Competence, and Rishi is competent. Prime Minister Sunak is competent, and Jeremy Hunt is competent. The trouble is, it's arrived a bit late in the day, but be in no doubt, I am of the view that they are doing the right things. We have to have sound money. We have to get the public finances back in order. So I have no complaints about the Prime Minister, the Chancellor. I think they're doing a fantastic job. It's just against an enormously difficult background.
Charles, it's good to speak to you this morning. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.